What is up? Check it out. You've heard of Clock Boy, the one that Obama was going to meet and put on a pedestal, and it seems to come to a common knowledge that he really just took a store-bought alarm clock apart and put it in a suitcase. Here's what a real homemade clock looks like. And actually, this is a time clock. Oh, it just kicked on from my water heater. This is truly homemade. I made this about 5 or 6 years ago. You can hear my water heater kicking on. This is truly homemade. Got a microprocessor and all the electronics. This is just a breadboard. I never did get around to making a more permanent circuit board. This is, hopscotch with wires and whatnot. True fabrication. I do sometimes design my circuit boards on the computer and then have them etched for me and shipped so I can have a professional looking board. But this is what you build if you just go to Radio Shack for the board. Got the 5 volt voltage regulator, which is a switching power supply here through a little coil. Steps it down to 5 volts for this. 24 volts AC is coming out of this transformer here into here. It gets switched from the controller through this optical isolator through the SCR device. The SCR device is what switches the 24 volts to the contactor. Contactor is pulled in now. And then this is the LCD display. I buy this from I'm trying to think of who it is I buy it from. Anyway, it starts with an N. I get those for $11. And then usually this wire here, I just ribbon cable, just keep this out of old computer IDE cables. Molex connectors and everything I buy from DigiKey. And you have to crimp and solder all those all together, but it makes it cheap that way. Turn the flashlight part off so you can see how it works. I was just setting the clock. So set hour. It's 7, about 39 right now. So 7, set hour, set minute, set day. Today is Wednesday. Set time on 7. There's like a bug or something in there. It's 1900 hours. That equals 7. Time off 15. It's supposed to be 12 noon. Low temp. I can't remember what I used to set this stuff for. Basically, I could control the temperature of the water heater also. If I turn the settings up real high manually in the water heater, I can have this temperature probe shut it off. I'll just keep that cranked up for right now, let it cycle off inside. Set low temp, high temp 130. Manual operator, wait, bam. So there's the temperature, getting a little bit of interference, so it's kind of jumping around there a little bit. This thing, I built this over 5 years ago. It might have been like 6 years ago. And then I moved it to twice, 2 different houses. So here's the clock. 1940, which is 7:40 military time. Wednesday, temperature, water heater on. So I wish I'd get that bug out of there, but oh well. And then I can go through here and manually shut it off. This is only for me to use. It's not made for toggle. There we go. There, just shut off the water heater. But generally it's just to keep this off during that 12 to 7 peak time that you have, where the APS really rapes us on the electric. Okay, so anyway, this is true homebrew electronics, man. I almost forgot. The program to make such a device run when you build it from scratch, when it's truly homemade. Here, to dig this out, this is from several years ago. My last update was in 2012 for it. This is the program written in Pick Basic Pro. Here's all of my variables that I define. So in my programs, that's what they're for. Here is the interrupt handler, which is written in assembler. I only know so much about that. I do know what this is all doing. So basically, when a interrupt flag is triggered, it goes to the interrupt flag handler, And so I just have it looking for the interrupt flag here. So it says bit test file skip if clear. And what it's looking at, which is just a 0, 1, clear or set, is an interrupt controller interrupt flag. So if it is clear, like this wasn't set, but for some reason it came to the interrupt handler, it will just skip this command and go to this one. That's just the way it works in assembler. And then that just says go done interrupt, which runs a subroutine, putting all the files back where they were from the temporary location and going back to the regular part of the program, wherever it was interrupted from, to continue doing whatever it was doing. But basically, if the interrupt flag is set so it won't skip, it's going to go to that, add time, and what it's doing, bit clear file, interrupt, or this is clearing the interrupt flag, so it's clearing that flag on that command, and then it's incrementing file the variable clock, which is my seconds, and actually this is like 60th of a second, because basically this is looking at the pulses on your 60 hertz sine wave coming from your house, the power in your wall basically is 60 hertz. I got that converted to a little square wave pulse, and that's what's triggering the chip. It's counting those pulses, so 60 times a second this chip's being interrupted from what it's doing to go to this, just to increment my clock variable. And then every 60 times that thing, rolls over, then it increments the clock seconds by 1, which now I have to look through my program. It's been a long time. Yeah, right here. If this went over 59, then S equals S plus 1, and then it resetting the clock, that 60th a second, counter, back to 0. So every time it hits 60, basically, because it went over 59, it's going to increment at 1, roll over the clock back to 0. So that's how the seconds count. And then it's a real simple clock for program. If the seconds equals 60, then it's going to increment the minutes, and then 0 the seconds. If the minutes hit 60, then basically it's going to increment the hours and reset the minutes variable to 0, and then the same thing with hours and the days. Days are just 0 through 7, and basically if you go way down here, I have a lookup table for it to convert what's going to be on the display that you saw there, which was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all that kind of stuff. Everything in red is text that's displayed on that LCD. Pick Basic Pro does have this pretty much preset out where LCD out is the command, and then here's the command that actual LCD module you saw it will receive, and it tells it I have to remember, I think this was clear display. Let's line 1, and then I'm going to say the decimal to the second place of hour, decimal to second place to the minute, and the decimal to second place to seconds displayed. And then of course these in red is actual. I'm going to put colons, semicolons between there, and then a space over here. And then as I'm going through the programming, so there's a little bit to it for something as simple as that. You have to write all this stuff, and then you have to not have mistakes, because as computer program goes, if there's a mistake, it could just sit there and hang and not do anything else, or it could do something really weird. So it works perfectly because I ran it for years like this. So, but that's it. A lot of this is just subroutines, check, timer, set. This is when I was pushing that mode button, it just going through these different modes. Set high, set temp, manual op, all that stuff. So that's a pretty simple program compared to some of the other ones I've had to write. I'm not a pro on this stuff, and it's just another one of my many hobbies that I haven't mastered, but I happen to know something about that. So this stuff here, I write all myself. If I need to learn something new, I go on the internet or whatever, but I know how to do all this stuff. Like this command, for example, is ADC, and that's your analog to digital converter in channel 11, and then what my variable is going to be that it's going to put that measured amount into that variable, which was temp for temperature. The only analog input I'm using is for temperature, to see what temperature the water heater was with that little probe, and then it converts it, and got that display to work. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, the clock boy, the one that Obama, met up and gave some awards to and everything, which everybody's looking at the pictures. You could see it was clearly just a clock from, here we go. Just a clock. It's a store-bought clock. You could tell it is. Look, it's got that's a 9-volt connector for that battery backup. Same thing. There's a store-bought one. I mean, this is not something he made homemade. You could tell. It's just he just took apart a clock and just took the guts of it and stuck it in the suitcase. It's just the most bizarrest story that Obama, with the power of the government and everybody works there. I mean, they're just gonna, as if they're just gonna like let Obama do this, knowing that that's a fraud. But it just goes to show you the kind of conspiracy there are within our government, within the controlled media, that nobody said anything. It was only the alternative media and other people that know something, like electronics guys, like me, geeks, are going to look at that and go, what the heck? That looks familiar. This is just a store-bought clock. You just took it apart and stuck it in the case. And Obama had to give him an award and meet with the kid and everything. What a stupid hoax. You think that kid freaking made that and programmed that clock with the code I just showed you? Yeah, I don't think so.